2024 is declared to be the year of AI, where we see even more progress and a transition from exploration to execution. I don't know to which extent it's true, but I'd like to be prepared for it, at least mentally. So today we'll be talking about some of the most interesting books about artificial intelligence written by some well-known experts in the field. Without further ado, let's jump right in. The first book we'll be talking about is Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark. He's a physicist and a machine learning researcher. In this book, Tegmark talks about 3 different tiers of life since the start of the universe. From simple and biological, like the little bacteria who can't really change much about its own body and also its own software, to cultural life where the species still can't change their own biological body, but it can design its own software by loading new skills, new languages, and new ideas. And the author argues that this flexibility has given humans the power and the ability to dominate the planet. But our brains are still largely the same as our ancestors thousands of years ago. And here comes next the Life 3.0, where we have technological species. It can design both its software and its own hardware, causing an intelligence explosion. So there's a lot of debate about what this future, artificial general intelligence, Life 3.0, or whatever you want to call it, how it will look like. Few people actually believe in extreme good or extreme bad scenarios. We'd either all die in a few years by AI, or we live in a heaven-like world thanks to AI. Most people actually fall into the 2 main camps. As Tegmark calls them, the techno-skeptics who believe AGI is so hard that it won't happen for hundreds of years, so don't worry about it now. And the beneficial AI movement camp who believes human-level AGI is possible within this century, and a good outcome is not guaranteed. We need to work really hard for it. You might still remember around this time last year, there was a heated debate when the open letter about pausing giant AI experiments signed by a lot of well-known figures in the field. I think I did actually sign the open letter myself. Reading this book makes me realize that those techno-skeptics who thought this letter was totally unnecessary, it doesn't mean that they are reckless and they don't care about the risks. It's just that they have a much longer timeline in mind. Undering put it this way: fearing a rise of killer robots is like worrying about overpopulation on Mars. And Jan LeCun also thinks LLMs today are still too stupid to be worried about. But on the other hand, the people who warned about the AI risks are not necessarily AI doomers. They just have a closer timeline in mind as to when AGI will happen. So there's no consensus on how fast things will go. The book also discusses different impact AI has on different domains such as military, healthcare, and finance. Also why AI safety is difficult and deserves more research. There's also a whole chapter to discuss a wide range of AI aftermath scenarios, from the best scenarios to the most absurd scenarios. Should we have an AI protector guard or enslaved guard or 1984 surveillance kind of world? I find it really entertaining and also very thought-provoking at the same time. My favorite takeaway from this book is that asking the question, what will happen, is asking the wrong question. The better question to ask is, what should happen? We do have the power to influence and shape our future. So it's important to figure out, what do we actually want? What kind of world do we want to live in? Will we want to have complete job automation? Who should be in control of the society? Humans, AI, or cyborgs? So if you enjoy these kinds of high-level discussion and want to have a bird's-eye view of all things AI related, I'd highly recommend this book, and it's extremely well written and easy to read and very insightful. Alright, the next book we'll be talking about is another classic, Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom. The central idea of this book, that's also described very nicely on a blog post from Wait But Why, is that in the grand spectrum of intelligence, the distance between a village idiot and Einstein is actually quite small. Once the AI intelligence passed the chimpanzee and dumb human stages, it can suddenly be much smarter than us. There's a certain crossover point where the AI system will start becoming smarter by itself. This is why in this book, Nick Bostrom believes believes that superintelligence, if it's happening, it's more likely to be fast and more likely to be explosive. One reason to believe intelligence explosion is more likely to happen than a slow process is that machine intelligence can benefit from breakthroughs from other fields in rather unexpected ways. And of course, this is not to mention quantum computing and that one day machines might be able to come up with new ideas to improve themselves or even rewrite themselves completely. Another interesting point mentioned in this book is that there are actually two different ways to design superintelligent machines. What we are currently doing with AI is mostly teaching computers to imitate human thinking through training large neural networks on a lot of data. And the alternative idea would be to get the computer to actually simulate the human brain, not just imitate it. This idea of whole brain emulation is about building a computer that can learn like a child and will eventually get smarter through interacting with the real world. It sounds kind of like the idea of the movie Minority Report, where we can precisely predict who we will grow into, and from there we can hopefully even foresee future crimes. The only problem with that idea is that we know quite little about how our brains work and how consciousness actually works. And no one knows if this would otherwise be a good idea to emulate human brains without consciousness. And as Stuart Russell put it in his book, in the area of consciousness, we really do know nothing. So I'm going to say nothing. No one in AI is working on making machines conscious, nor would anyone know where to start. So that sounds like a long shot. But today with GPT-4 and many powerful language models, I feel like we are making some good progress on the first route, that is to imitate human thinking. This book also goes on to discuss why we need to prioritize AI safety, as it's never a guarantee that a super intelligent AI would be benevolent. There are actually many different ways a superintelligence AI might not be aligned with human values. The book describes a bunch of failure modes where things could go wrong. One of them is the instrumental convergence. This basically means an AI agent with unbounded but apparently harmless goals can act in surprisingly harmful ways. For example, a harmless AI might decide to turn us all into paperclips to maximize production. These scenarios are mostly thought experiments, but they are really fascinating to read and makes a lot of sense. Another good point of this book is that global collaboration is the key to make AI safe and beneficial, and an arms race or some secret government programs will more likely lead to very bad outcomes. I think this point hits home even though this book was written more than 10 years ago. It's a good sign we have so many open source large language models nowadays that anyone can use and contribute to. You can now even download a whole uncensored large language model for free from the internet. And these open source projects will hopefully help startups compete and also drive the progress towards safer AI. Well, provided that everyone has a kind heart and use these models for good. Moving on to the next book, which is The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. He's also the co-founder of Google DeepMind. He thinks that we are approaching a threshold in the human history where everything is about to change and none of us are prepared. And this book is one of the newest books on AI that also covers recent breakthroughs like robotics and large language models. The book is divided into 4 parts. The first 2 parts talk about the endless acceleration of technology throughout human history. The idea of this book is that technology and inventions come and go like waves and shaping the world we live in, from the invention of the printing press, electricity, steam engines, cars, computers, to machine intelligence. There are many unstoppable incentives and forces that push the progress, not just financial and political incentives, but also human ego, human curiosity, the desire to win the race, help the world, or change the world, and whatever it might be. So what's the coming wave? This would include advanced AI, quantum computing, and biotechnology. The author discussed a few different features that distinguish this wave of technology from the previous waves in human history. One of the main features is that it's happening at accelerating pace. It will be general purpose technology, just like electricity, but it will be much more powerful because it can become autonomous and do things by itself. The next part of this book describes different states of failure, basically what the consequences of these technology for the nation states and democracy. If the state is not able to contain this wave, the nation states would basically collapse. Reading this chapter makes me realize how fragile is the world we live in. Imagine how new AI technology makes it possible to create the next generation of digital weapons like what we see in Black Mirror, sophisticated cyber attacks, or imagine the world where deepfakes are everywhere and spreading false information targeting those who want to believe it. And other doom scenarios are biological weapons and lethal autonomous weapons. Another effect of this coming wave is job automation, which we'll talk more in depth about in the next book. And Solomon believes new jobs will surely be created, but they won't come in the numbers and timescale to truly help. Also, even if we have new jobs, there might also not enough people with the right skills to do them. Many people will need complete retraining, so in the short term, many people would potentially get unemployed. In the last part of the book, the author discusses why containment must be possible because, well, our lives depend on it. And he also talks about the 10 steps to make this possible that require coordination from technical research, developers, businesses, governments, and also the general public. I find this book super interesting and relevant that covers the more immediate challenges that we face today. I'd highly recommend it. If you want to learn more about this book, check out this nice explainer video on the Coming Wave website. The next book we're going to talk about is Power and Progress: Our 1,000-Year Struggle Over Technology and Prosperity by Darren Acemoglu, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, and Simon Johnson. This book is recommended to me by one of you and really appreciate that. This book examines basically the relationship between technology, prosperity, and societal progress. The authors challenge the popular notion that technological advancement, including AI, automatically leads to progress and shared prosperity. Instead, they argue that technological advancement can often exacerbate inequality. The benefits get largely captured by a small group of individuals and corporations, just like how workers in textile factories during the Industrial Revolution were forced to work long hours in horrible conditions as a small group of rich people captured most of the wealth. Similarly, in the last decades, computer technologies made a small group of entrepreneurs and businesses become ultra-rich, while the poorer part of the population has seen their real incomes actually decline. Data tells us that in the last 4 decades, the real wages of goods-producing workers in the US have declined even though productivity has grown. The book discussed a lot of potential explanations for this and how we could solve it. I find that the most interesting and relevant chapters in this book are the digital damage and artificial struggle. These chapters analyze the impact of digital and AI automation on jobs and human workers. The authors argue that AI technology should focus on automating the routine tasks, just like the ATMs automate bank tellers, rather than automating the creative and the non-routine tasks from humans. They made a point that technology should empower us to be more productive rather than try to replace us completely. And this is how we can make technology benefit everyone. The book also coins the term social automation, which I find quite interesting. The idea is that a lot of companies seem to rush to replace workers with machineries and automated AI customer services, for example, only to find out that automation did not work well. The machines just do a poorer jobs than human workers. Elon Musk once tried to automate everything possible at Tesla, and he admitted that it was a mistake. It is his mistake. And humans are underrated. So the book argues that humans are good at most of what they do. We develop sophisticated communication, problem solving, and creativity skills over thousands of years. So let's just let humans do their things and machines do their things. Or put in other words, this is a case against building artificial general intelligence that big techs today are after. Although I'm not sure if I would agree with this point, I can really relate to it. Recently, my colleagues and I at work have been working on some Gen AI projects to help companies automate their contact center. And so far, I have to admit we have quite limited success. The language models hallucinate often and very unreliable, and so it's hard to bring this into production. And this got me thinking, Are we rushing it just for the sake of technology? Maybe humans are just better at what they do. Towards the end of the book, the authors offer a range of recommendations for policies to help redirect technology to a better future for all of us. So overall, this is a very thought-provoking book, and I'd highly recommend this book to those of you who enjoy more critical discussion on AI, and also if you are into economics and politics, and also if you're working in law-making organizations. Okay, the next book is Human Compatible: AI and the Problem of Control by Stuart Russell. You may already recognize him from his name and also from his face here, that he is also the co-author of the textbook about artificial intelligence, which we'll talk about towards the end of the video. Despite the serious sounding title, this book actually is a very fun read. It talks about how to design intelligent machines that obviously can help us solve difficult problems in the world, while at the same time ensuring that they never behave in harmful ways to humans. The first part of the book talks about AI in general, different ways AI can be misused, and why we should take it very seriously to build super intelligent AI that's aligned with human goals. He said success would be the biggest event in human history and perhaps the last event in human history. He also briefly offers answer to the question of when we will solve human-level AI. Russell believes that with the technology we have today, we still have a long way to go, and he believes that deep learning, the model behind large AI models today, falls far short of what is needed. And so deep learning is probably not going to directly lead to human-level AI. He also thinks several major breakthroughs are needed for us to solve human-level AI. One of the most important missing pieces of the puzzle is to make computer understand the hierarchy of abstract actions, the notion of time and space, which is needed to construct complex plans and also build its own models of the world. An example he gives is that it's easy to train a robot to stand up using reinforcement learning, but the real challenge is to make the robot discover by itself that standing up is a thing. In the second part of the book, Stuart Russell dives more into why he thinks that the standard approach to building AI systems nowadays is fundamentally flawed. According to him, we're essentially building systems that are basically optimization machines that try to optimize on a certain objective that we feed into them. They are completely indifferent to human values, and this could lead to catastrophic outcomes. Imagine that we tell an AI system to come up with a cure for cancer as soon as possible. While this sounds to be an innocent and good objective, the AI might decide to come up with a poison to kill everyone so no more people would die from cancer, or maybe it would decide to inject a lot of people with cancer so that it can carry experiments at scale and see what works. So then it will be a little bit too late for us to say, oh, I forgot to mention a very important thing, that people don't like to be killed. So this book argues that the world is so complex and it's really difficult to come up with a good objective for machine that takes into account all kinds of possible loopholes. We kind of need to teach the machine, do what I mean, not just what I say. So to solve this problem, Russell proposes a new approach, the idea of beneficial machines. He thinks we should design AI systems that do their best to realize human values and never do harms, no matter how intelligent they are. So to make this possible, Russell proposes 3 principles. Kind of reminds me of the 3 principles by Asimov for robots. So the first principle is that the machines are purely altruistic. They don't care about its own well-being or even its own existence. The second principle is that the machines are humble and don't assume it knows everything perfectly, including what objective it should have. And the third principle is that the machines learn to observe and predict human preferences. For example, it should know most humans prefer to live and not to die. And the machine should be able to recognize humans' preference even when our actions are not perfectly rational. And the book goes on to prove that these principles should work, and this can be mathematically guaranteed. Well, this seems to be a very good plan if there's only one human on Earth, but there are billions of unique humans and our preferences could completely collide. So there's a whole whole chapter about the complications to this whole plan, which is humans ourselves. So overall, this book is a fun, small, but also very nuanced book. You'll find so many original ideas and arguments in here. I find it a very important read, and so highly recommend it. Alright, the next book on the list is The Alignment Problem: How Can AI Learn Human Values by Brian Christian. This book tackles the issue of making AI systems that are aligned with human values and intentions. This book basically walks you through a tour since the beginning of deep learning and neural networks and talk about all the ways that AI goes wrong and how people have been trying to fix it. I think this book will be particularly interesting and helpful if you're already somewhat familiar with some machine learning and data science. You come across in this book a lot of data science terms like training data, gradient descent algorithm, word embeddings, and a lot of other jargons. The first part of the book talks about bias, fairness, and transparency of machine learning models. You get to know almost the entire history of large neural networks and all the names who have contributed to the progress in the last decades. This chapter also talks about a bunch of mistakes and all kinds of incidents where machine learning went wrong. For example, in 2015, Google Photos mistakenly classified black people as gorillas. Google realized this is totally not okay and decided to remove this label entirely. It's so embarrassing that 3 years later, until 2018, Google Photos still refused to tag anything as gorillas, including real gorillas. There are more examples with more serious consequences like model bias in healthcare or justice systems. I really enjoy the discussion about what actually caused these issues and what people have done to fix them. Also, how to remove bias from machine learning models when the world itself is biased. It's a reality that more men are doctors and all Asians are good at math. Or how can we even define fairness? While frankly speaking, life is in many ways not fair. It's really captivating because these are all real stories and not just thought experiments, and they could impact the lives of billions of people. The second part of the book is dedicated to reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning, which is, in simple words, is to train machines to imitate our behaviors. This is also the main idea behind self-driving cars. We basically try to train the machine, okay, watch how I drive and do it like this. We've definitely seen a lot of success with this, but there are still some limitations to this, so the book further discusses other methods like inverse reinforcement learning and reinforcement learning with human feedback, which is also used by OpenAI to train their language models. In the last chapter, Christian delves into how AI should deal with uncertainty. So overall, this book is a must read for anyone interested in the ethical implications of AI and also all the challenges in building a fair machine learning system. And finally, it will be a mistake if we don't mention this huge textbook, Artificial Intelligence: A Modern Approach by Peter Novick and Stuart Russell. It's a very comprehensive textbook that covers all the foundation of an AI agent, from search problem, knowledge representation, planning, and so on. We also have a chapter on machine learning and a separate chapter for natural language processing and computer vision. It's a staple for anyone studying computer science and AI. It has detailed overview of all the AI concepts. You might be thinking it's a textbook, so it's meant for people who are students or researchers or so, but it's actually a very accessible and engaging book. The only thing is that you do need some basic math understanding and be familiar with the mathematical notations. I wish I had more chances to dive into more details of many chapters in this book. If you're learning the technical aspects of AI, it's really a great resource and I'd highly recommend getting this book sooner or later. So it's a longer video than usual, and thank you for sticking around. I hope I did justice to these really amazing books with this video. These books really give me a more grounded view of AI development. It's really refreshing, and for me, I have much less angst, and whenever I see a headline on the news saying we'll have AGI in 2024, I'm like, probably not, but things will surely get interesting. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, like, and check out other videos or whatever. Thank you for watching. See you next video. Bye.